everybody. Welcome to Daily Distinction. Glad you are here on a Thursday afternoon. What's going on? Glad to see you. I'm in the kitchen today, as you can tell. For some reason, I've been having internet trouble, and I don't know why that's the case, but hopefully we're here and you're watching and everything is good, whether you're here live or on the replay. Glad that you are here. And originally I was going to be outside, and it never fails. As soon as I go outside, the guy with the leaf blower shows up. You may hear it in the background. So 57 degrees right now in Las Vegas. And I know that for many of you, you were fighting big snow. I saw my pal Sage Steele had a Facebook story on that they're snowed in. So wow. Don't know where you are, where what the weather is, where you are joining us from today. But what a mess. Incredible snow. I was reading, too, right before we started, that there are some places in the Northeast that got more snow in the last 24 hours than they did all of last winter. Holy cow. Amazing. Anyway, that's the scoop. Glad you're here. We're going to talk a little bit about story today. But don't forget, if you want to hear additional stories on distinction, all you need to do is say to your device, I whisper that because I had a couple of people tell me that when I said it out loud, their device went off. So Alexa, play Distinction Radio, and it will. So you can listen in at about any time. We're going to talk a little bit about story today and why it's so important. Oh, what a gorgeous. Did you hear? Mine just went off in the background. Curtis, what a gorgeous place. Man, it's so good. That is very, very cool. Samuel, so good to see you. Jerry, great to have you. Day is great. And here's the scoop. So, wait a minute. Alexa, off. Alexa decided to start playing. So I was not long out of being a national FFA officer. I was 21 years old. I got invited to be the speaker for the World Livestock Auctioneer Championship banquet. They were going to pay me. And I'm 21 years old, just to come over and give a speech. Some of the folks had heard me in FFA, and so they asked me to come over and give the speech. So I was working that summer in Washington, D.C. The speech was at the Hershey Park Lodge in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So the guy that I was rooming with for the summer, a guy named Sammy Peebles, and we decided to jump in the car and drive over. And that way we could get out of where we were living in D.C., go over to Hershey, go to the park, have a good time, all that kind of stuff. So we go over to Hershey, and I'm gonna give the speech and MC the banquet that night. Interestingly enough, one of the things the meeting planner said, the guy that hired me said, he said, "Now, Scott, I've heard you with FFA, and one of the things we did in FFA, we were 20 years old as national FFA officers. And so one of the things is that we would share stories. I'd hear, Bart or Alpha or Pete or Gary or Garrett tell a story, my fellow officers. And, we didn't think anything about telling that because they were all generic stories. They were all speakers that know about the starfish story. The guy throws the starfish back, made a difference to that one, right? So there were all these old stories that everybody told, and really nobody really minded that we did it because we were 20 years old. We were, and many times we're speaking to students that hadn't heard the stories. So he said, make sure that you don't tell those old stories because you're speaking to adults. These are livestock auctioneers. They've heard all the old stories. So tell a story about you. I'd never really done much of that before. I mean, in FFA, I talked about my experiences, in FFA because they could relate to that. But I told a story about something that I learned from a speech that I had given and that my dad had helped me with. And I told that story in that speech. That was the first time I had crafted a story from my experience rather than just telling a generic story that everybody had heard. I mean, think about it. If all you do is tell stories that other people have heard, have you ever told a joke and somebody stopped you, go, oh, good joke, but I've heard it? Because we really didn't want to hear it again. or you start telling about what happened on a television show, and they go, "Oh, no, I saw the show." Well, but the stories about you are stories or what you've seen or what you've experienced or customers and how they've used your product. The stories about that are uniquely yours. So I tell the story that night, and it was okay. I don't mean that, because I think you have to learn the process. You have to learn the system. But the story was okay. And it was the first time, and I'll never forget how nervous I was, because the first time you tell a story, and I spent so much time, like writing it and crafting it and moving it around. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying to make it good, just trying to make it compelling. And I remember how nervous I was, because one of the things I also remember about that night is typically, I wear a wireless mic and I move around, but back then those weren't, there weren't wireless mics back then like there are today, at least not as popularly used. And so I was stuck behind the lectern with a mic on the lectern, and so I can right now see that moment, because it was such a big moment. And I think about, boy, if I would have only known the formula back then, how much better the story was. But here's kind of the next thing of the story. In the audience that night was the film director, Werner Herzog. He was making a documentary about the group that I was speaking to. And he introduced himself. I did not know. Of course, he wasn't as famous then as he is now. I mean, he's the guy, if you've seen Mandalorian, the first season, he's the guy that plays the person that sends the Mandalorian out to get what we find out to be Baby Yoda. That's Werner Herzog. Maybe you've seen the documentaries Grizzly Man, or the other. He's got a new documentary that's on Netflix right now. He's got stuff on Disney. Time magazine called him the greatest living director of film in the world today. He's in the audience, and he comes up and he starts talking, and we end up going out and getting a beer after it was over. And just a warm, wonderful guy. And that's the end. I go back to college. The summer job is over. I leave DC, go back to Franklin College. I get a call while I'm at college, and that's where he offered me to play the bad guy in his next movie, the young banker that repossesses the home of immigrants and kicks them out in the cold. And not a week goes by that I don't get an email from somebody that's tracked me down that says, "Were you the banker in the movie Strasig?" It's one of the great joys of my life. One of the great coincidences of my life. Roger Ebert named it one of the 50 great films in the history of cinema. That would never have happened. The connection wouldn't have been there had Werner Herzog in the audience not made the connection with me through story. If I'd have gotten up and told the starfish story, or some other story that has been around forever, every time you point a finger, you've got three pointing back at you, right? Or I was in an audience one time at an event. I'm sorry, I'm not. Ate a handful of almonds right before I went on here. I was in an audience at a program where I had been speaking earlier, and this other keynote speaker came in, and he told the story about the monkey putting its hand in a jar. Have you ever heard that the monkey catching is that they put a jar out with like a banana or something in the bottom of the jar, so the monkey will reach in the jar and get the banana, but then can't get his hand out, and the jar is, they got a chain on it, and that's how because the monkey will not let go once he gets his hand on the banana, and that's how they get. But he told it like that had happened to him, that he was on this monkey catching expedition. And I mean, you could literally see people roll their eyes because they'd heard that story for so long. That didn't happen to you. You're lying to us, which discredited every other thing that he talked about for the rest of his speech. Right? I mean, if they know you're lying about this, why would they assume that you're telling them the truth when it comes to other things that matter in your presentation? So I started working on story. Then, because I was in the movie, and Samuel, the movie is called Strasek, Strozek. That's the last name of the main character of the movie, and it's from the late 70s and Werner Herzog. But you can look it up. It's kind of a cult film, Classic, some folks would say. My godson was in USC film school, and that was one of the films that they showed for instruction for these students about how you can make a compelling story and a compelling movie on a low budget. But anyway, uh, so that story changed my life, because then because it was in the news in Louisville, because Crothersville, my hometown, is 30 some miles north of Louisville. It was in there that this guy from Crothersville was in this big hit German movie, and how that happened. So I got interviewed, and the news director there said, "Well, hey, we've got one of the Star Wars movie, Empire Strikes Back, is coming out, and what if you went and saw the movie tonight, Thursday, when they had the premiere, and then we sent a truck out and you did a review." And that's how I became a movie reviewer. And then I got picked up for syndication in 100 markets across the country. So anyway, well, that provided me the opportunity to meet and just be fascinated about stories and talk with everybody from Robert Zemeckis. That's the guy that wrote and directed Back to the Future and directed Forrest Gump, and James Cameron, who directed Titanic and Avatar. And one that I thought was really interesting was a guy named Wes Craven. And if you're a horror movie fan, you know that he kind of ruled scary movies with the Freddy Krueger series and some of the Friday 13th stuff they did with Sean Cunningham. The elements that terrify you in a movie like that are also basic elements that will inspire you in a movie like Schindler's List. So it got me fascinated with the process of story, and it got me, and Scott, that means more than I can possibly describe, because it was my story about what I learned at home, at Crothersville, that made all this happen. And growing up in Crothersville made all this happen. So, that's what it's all about. Oh, Samuel, thanks, man. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Larry, always great to see you. And Donovan, great to see you as well. Thank you for being here. Here's Ted. Always good to see you. I enjoyed your comments on our call yesterday, Ted. Appreciate that. So it's amazing what story can make happen. For me, it changed my life. Just one story led to a domino effect. And you know what? We never know. I didn't know that night when I told that story that it was going to lead to all this. But the difference between telling your story and telling a generic story is incredibly powerful. But there are some rules that we have to know. Let me give you one for an example. One of the problems that a lot of people get into when they start telling a story is they make themselves the hero of the story from the outset. I was watching this Monty Python thing the other day on YouTube. It was just hilarious. And it was these guys. Well, it wasn't exactly Monty Python. It's a couple of guys from Monty Python. Marty Feldman, remember him from Young Frankenstein? Was one of the people. And look it up on YouTube. They're sitting around, and they're in this very stodgy British country club. But they start talking about how tough they had it as a child. And it doesn't matter what one says. The next guy always had it worse. Like the first guy says, "Oh, you think you had it rough? We grew up in a cardboard box." And the next guy goes, "Cardboard box? We aspired to cardboard boxes. We lived in a hollowed out log." And the next guy goes, "A log? We were curled up in the median in the middle of the highway." So no matter what it was, somebody had to do it. But they started out at the word, right? They kept, and a lot of people tell stories that way. Let me tell you about what I've done. And let me tell you, nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants, even if you've climbed Mount Everest backwards blindfolded, you don't start the story with you at the peak, right? You start with all that you've done to get there. So there is a formula to help make you a better storyteller. So the message for today. Hey, Jerry, glad to hear that. That's fantastic. You're welcome. I hope it was of help. So if that's an area in which you are interested, I'm going to try to drill deeper into it rather than just a few moments that we spend every day on Daily Distinction. Just go to distinctivestory.com. I'm going to be doing a 5-hour program on December 30th. All the times and everything is there, and you can sign up to attend. It's just $297. By the way, if you are a member of my Distinction Builders group, hang on, because you're going to be getting an email that lets you know some additional details about this. So don't sign up yet until you get the email. If you're not a member of the Distinction Builders group, like Jerry and Donovan, it's available for you there. Just go to distinctivestory.com. The website is up, thanks to Shelley. It is rolling, and you can sign up right away to be a part of this. We're going to really go through everything that it takes for you to build a story that can have incredible impact on your business. That's part of the problem. You've probably had this happen. You go in and I need to buy a glass, and there's a glass setting there. And one salesperson would say, yes, this is a glass. It holds 12 ounces of liquid beverage, and it's on sale. But there might be another salesperson that says, oh, let me tell you why this glass is designed this way. You see, our founder was driving down the road, and he picked up the glass from the holder in the car. And when he tilted it, the angle of the glass as he was driving, he spilled onto his shirt. Have you ever done that? Have you ever spilled? Most of them go, yeah, I've spilled something in the car. Well, so what he decided to do was to design a specific. Now all of a sudden you're going, now it's not a glass, it's a spiller preventer. Now we've changed the game. That's what I'm talking about. That's what story can do. That's a small focus of it, but it's much more dramatic than that. So if you're interested in it, again, here the website is distinctivestory.com. I'll put the link here in the chat. There we go. And I'd love to have you join us. I froze up there for some reason. So I don't know if you can still hear or not, because as I'm looking at it says an error occurred. I don't know what's going on here. But check us out at distinctivestory.com. An error occurred. Wait a moment. Oh, gosh. Shows I'm still signed on, but something has happened. I told you I've been having internet problems. That's why I'm down here. So well, if you can still hear, great. If not, I will catch up with you. There we go. I'm back. I'm coming back in spurts. It's showing that I'm connected. I don't know what happened there to StreamYard. All right, everybody. So would love to have you be a part of distinctivestory.com, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow. Sorry. Oh, good. Still, hey, thanks, Alan. How you doing? Still on? That was the weirdest. StreamYard shut down, and then I had to sign back in and do all that, and that's so crazy that you could hear me. So that is why I don't know what happened there, because my internet connection looked loud and clear. Hey, Charles, great to see you. By the way, as I said, Alan, my gosh, hope you're doing great. Hope everything is good with you. Hey, Bruce, thanks for the info. Larry, Scott. See, what was happening was my screen froze with StreamYard, and so I couldn't even see your comments there. That's why I kept rambling on, because I didn't know if it worked out. And then StreamYard shut down and then rebooted. So if you don't know, by the way, StreamYard is the software that we use to do the live stream on the different Facebook groups and Twitter and YouTube. And if you'd like to learn more how to use live streaming, man, the Grow Live course by my pal Ken Walls is as good as it gets. So some of you have already, I know some of you have already signed up for that. So anyway, if you'd like to work on your story, just check out distinctivestory.com. I hope that you'll join me, and it's going to be a great day to help you. And that's what it's going to do, is not just teach this formula, but as you go through the program, you'll be working on the bare bones of getting your story together, So at the end of the 5 hours, you're going to have a story constructed. So that's what we're going to do on December the 30th, December 30. And all the details are there on distinctivestory.com. I hope that you come join us, obviously, but I certainly hope that you create your distinctive story. Hey, Brian, great to see you. As always, glad that you are here today. Thank you for taking part of this. So that's all for Daily Distinction for today. I'm going to run down to Caesars and get a late lunch with that. I'll look forward to talking to everybody tomorrow, same time. Hopefully a better day for me on the internet, and I'll look forward to catching up with you tomorrow. Go to distinctivestory.com. You'll see more about what we're doing. Look forward to checking in with you tomorrow. I'll see you on the next Daily Distinction. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you tomorrow.